On Saturday, March 31st, 1962, around 9 a.m., the small town of Milton, Florida, with 4,000 residents, thought they were awakening to just another common Florida spring thunderstorm, which quickly and without warning became the deadliest tornado in the state of Florida, and residents found themselves under attack by Mother Nature's violent fury. It wouldn't be until 1998 that the next deadliest tornado would top it in Kissimmee, Florida. While some were lucky enough to survive, others were not. At the time, this small town with a population of 4,000 residents, present day over 10,000, an F3 tornado registering 440 yards wide traveled 6.9 miles across northeastern Milton, destroying 130 homes and leaving many homeless. At the time, the hospital located on Stewart Street, called Santa Rosa Medical Center, only housed 50 beds, which they were quickly overwhelmed with patients after the storm, and many were transferred about 30 miles west to Pensacola, Florida, to receive treatment for severe injuries. Because 130 homes were completely demolished, this left many people homeless. The Florida Highway Patrol were the first on the scene and provided early estimates on the damage. Whiting Field, the Naval Air Station here in Milton, Florida, and the National Guard were sent as security patrols to protect homes from looters. In the worst areas hit, some homes were destroyed completely, and there was no evidence they even existed except for the scars of the rubble left behind. The first touchdown happened in an area known as College Park. This was, and still is today, a neighborhood of homes behind an elementary school known at the time as Oakhurst, now known as W.H. Rhodes, with most homes destroyed in the Bonner Street area. As the twister traveled up the hill, it first struck Braxton Hudson's trailer park. People claim the trailers exploded like bombs going off. They were all completely destroyed. Luckily, every person that lived there were all gone when the tornado struck at approximately 9:05 a.m. At the same time, it struck the Kingery home in which the family was present at the time. It tore off the roof, but fortunately, they escaped with their lives with non-serious injuries. Gulf Power had a microwave tower built across the street from the Strangeland home, which fell into the bedroom area. The roof over the porch was torn away, but the house survived the ordeal. Everyone escaped unharmed and was later rebuilt. The next home to be struck was the Harders. The twister picked up the home and it floated it in the air for several minutes, rotating the home before setting it down gently on the foundation of another home that had been completely destroyed, about 100 yards away. When this happened, there were actually 3 people inside the house, but were miraculously unharmed. The foundation in this photo was where it originally stood. The people inside, Janice, Sandy, and their daughter Lynette, all survived the ordeal. Then, the home of Jim and Lillian Pleasant was struck. They were extremely lucky to have survived because while in their home, the twister nearly destroyed it. They all piled into the bathroom because it was the only room left intact, as the rest of the house was completely destroyed. The Pleasant's home was located on Grace Street, and not everyone was lucky on that street, or the ones across from it called James Street. The Pleasants made it through unscathed, but 3 of their neighbors were killed. Elvie Helms, a young mother, and her infant daughter Starlet were killed. Elvie's husband, Ronald, and their 17-month-old daughter Deborah survived, but with serious injuries. Another neighbor across the street, Christine Bain, had been thrown from her bed where her neighbor, Lillian, discovered her body in a tree. 100 other people were injured and $1.8 million worth of property was destroyed as the tornado plowed through a 7-mile path of destruction northeast across Santa Rosa County in Milton. The twister wreaked its worst havoc on a 6-block area of Milton where 130 homes were damaged or demolished along Bonner Avenue, Sanders Street, Robin Avenue, Lark Avenue, Lee Street, Gray Street, Cedar Street, Stewart Street, James Street, and Oriole Drive. As we near March 31st, 2022, this will mark the 60th anniversary when this tragic event took place in my hometown. So here we go. We're starting out on Walnut Street, and if you notice, there's a lot of houses here now. I'm not sure these houses existed back then. I'm going to turn on to Cedar Street. My parents actually owned a home here a few years after the storm. They bought and purchased a home here, and everywhere that I'm driving right now is where the tornado plowed through. This is North Milton, and in just a second, if I can recognize the house, I'll show it to you. I never lived in that house. When I was born, they bought another house, but they still owned this one. Which one is it, Scotty? Okay, so I'm gonna show you that real quick. This is the house that my parents bought after the tornado. This dip's been here for as long as I can remember. Our school bus driver used to hit this thing going full force. She thought it was funny. But I'm not gonna do that. Yep. This is the path. Some of these houses may have existed back then. They're really old. You can tell they're 1960s homes, either 60s or 70s. Coming up on Byram Street, and we're gonna take a right here. Again, this is the path that the tornado took. We're gonna make a left right up here onto James Street. If I remember correctly, that Christine Bain, I've sort of martyred her in all of this tornado story. It's just a shame that the way she died and how young she was. But let me get pulled over here. This is supposed to be the address where her home once stood. As you can see, there are no houses here anymore. When I was a child growing up, this was called the projects, and even they've been torn down since. But in 1962, this is the address that I looked up where Christine Bain lived, and she was the one that was found dead on top of a tree. So is this the tree? Does the tree still even exist? There's also a tree here. But you can just imagine that day, the sky getting dark, people getting nervous, especially if ones live in trailers, and it took them by surprise. You know, the state of Florida or our county decided to eliminate us from any kind of
alert system for some reason, which I'm sure back then, as if today, you really can't predict a tornado. You can predict a hurricane and get ready for that, but you can't predict a tornado. And like I said, this was probably the trailer park at one time. It's a big lot of land, so I can imagine there were a whole bunch of trailers here. This is what used to be 104 Gray Street, where Elvie and her little baby daughter Scarlett lived. Look, way out there. That's where Christine Bain's home was, who was also killed in the tornado of 1962 in Milton, Florida. As you can see, there are no houses here. I am sure back then this was a trailer park. A lot of the young people here that are growing up and the new people that have come here, they don't, you know, they may not know about this history. And, you know, since I've been researching this subject of this tornado, it's actually been quite a few years. I like to get all my ducks in a row and really expose, like, you know, the history of this town. And you know, even if it isn't remarkable, I mean, like I said, it happened so long ago. You know, these people don't need to be forgotten. So let's head on off to Serenity Gardens, where Elvie Helms and her little baby daughter Scarlett are buried together. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have found Miss Elvie Louise. (1935 to 1962). Her husband passed away in 2010, and he's buried right next to her. This is the grave of Elvie Louise, who lost her life, what, almost 60 years ago in the Milton tornado of 1962. And you come right down here, Starlet Dawn Helms. Let's see, December 30th to from 1961 to March 31st, 1962, just a few months old. I found it. Wow. Just sit here and reflect a little bit, knowing that this child doesn't even, you know, wasn't even old enough to remember having a life. And a tornado came through, a bad one, killed a lot of people. To kill us one person is too much. So I have found Miss Elvie and her daughter, who died the same day, March 31st, 1962. And there you go. Very sad. Okay, so today I'm at the Baghdad Cemetery, and I'm going to show you this grave over here. In 1962, March 31st, 1962, Milton had a great tornado. She was killed during that tornado. She was actually found in the top of a tree. It had sucked her out of her home. She probably lived in a trailer at the time, because at the place that I'll show you, there's nothing but an empty lot there now. But there were trailer parks there, and this was a really bad tornado. And I can even get an interview from my mother, because she can remember before her and my father got married, or right after they got married. They were living in Panama City, and they were on their way back to Brewton, Alabama, where she was from, to visit family. And they had to they had police everywhere rerouting everybody. So it was a really big deal, and I'm gonna do a video on that. I have a newspaper clipping as well. So rest in peace, Christine Bain. You've been here a while. This is another victim of the Milton tornado of 1962, Carrie Noling. She was 49 years of age. This is her husband, I assume, next to her, who died before the tornado. So she was a widow. And I imagine only a few years after her husband died, they met in heaven. So I noticed that this grave has the last name of Johnson on it. And they were both born to the mid-late 20s. One died in 2020, the other in 1999. Their last name is Johnson. Gertrude Johnson and her children. I mean, I don't know for sure. But maybe this is her grave. And maybe this is where her children are buried with her. There's a lot unmarked here. But when I look back at that Johnson, maybe they knew each other.
If you was on video, I would have put on some decent clothes.
You look fine.
Huh?
Y'all look fine. Y'all look fine. Y'all look fine.
Sure?
You
This
look
is
fine.
me.
Mm-hmm.
This is my knocked around work clothes.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't wear these outside to go to the drugstore.
She's filming you.
Yeah, I even when I go out and do my own videos, it's too hot. I don't worry about makeup. I just throw my hair up.
Oh,
And
you mean your filming has
yeah.
already started?
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
bet.
We can start now, and if you'll just start by telling your names.
Frida, you start.
Okay, I'm Frida Nichols, and this is my husband, Coley Nichols. And we were in a tornado in 1962. And we lay down in the hallway when we heard things hitting the house. Coley picked up Rod in his blanket and all, and we held him between us because the roof had gone, but the air conditioning system was down below that, so that things didn't hit us from above, and we were instantly in water because the roof had gone. And I was 7 months pregnant.
Oh wow.
It was on March 31st.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a C-section the next day, which was
Wow.
Sunday, and it was April 1st, and Stan was born. I was 7 months along, so he was small. I don't remember his weight. Do you, Coley?
No, but he was small.
Little bitty baby. But
Aw.
my sister came and got Rod and took him to
Rod was
Panama
our
City
2-year-old son.
and kept him, so until we could get back in the house, and it destroyed our car and our home. And
That's what I heard. Over 100 or like 130 homes were just demolished.
Yes,
they were, and
17
there were
people
16.
Yeah.
died.
I have read 15 and I've read 17, so you just corrected that. I know for sure it's 17, right? Yeah.
Let me add my perspective.
Oh, yes, please.
This was on a Saturday morning, about 9 o'clock. I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee, reading the paper, like a lot of people do. Frida was still in the bed. Our 2-year-old son was in the bed, and so I noticed that the weather was starting to get really dark, really bad. And so when it really got bad, and it was loud, and I thought, well, my son, 2 years old, is going to wake up frightened. So I better go and pick him up and take him and put him in the bed with his mother. So I got him up in my arms, and about the time that I stepped from the bedroom into the hallway, then Frida emerged about the same time. So we just laid down and covered him up. It appears that our house was the first one struck. It sort of bounced off of our house.
Mm-hmm.
It took the roof off, and of course the rain all came in, and so the house was a total loss because of all the water that came in. Anyway, it bounced off of our house. It did not damage the house on either side of us or the house across the street.
Wow.
So it bounced off in one street over, then it came right down ground level and just really demolished a whole bunch of houses, like one or two streets over.
I mean, did you even have any time, like, to really think what was going on? Was it really quick?
And a lot of people say this, but it sounded like a freight train.
Yeah.
It was boom, 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 like you
Oh,
hear
wow.
a freight train making the noise. And so Frida was hospitalized, and of course we had nowhere to live, but Frida's uncle was the sheriff of the county at the time, Wade Cobb, and they had an apartment in the jail, believe it or not. And so I slept there with them for a few nights while Frida was in the hospital, and then ultimately we found a place to rent. We were lucky because we couldn't find a place, and it was a sure enough dump. But our house got rebuilt. Same place.
Yeah, and y'all are lucky.
And it cost within a few $100s of what we paid initially for the house.
Yeah.
The insurance paid for it.
Right.
Where was this?
This was on Lark Avenue, 906, wasn't it?
I do believe I've read about Lark
906
Avenue in the
Lark
paper
Avenue.
that I have. I sure have.
Which is sort of back of
Yeah.
the high school.
Yeah. That's pretty much where the tornado just plowed through that part of town right there.
Through Cedar Street.
You can, I will say, Mama told me that you were a judge.
I not at the time of the storm I was.
But eventually?
I was a probation and parole officer at that time. We had just moved to Milton.
Oh, okay.
We had moved in December to Milton, and that was in '62. And I became a county judge in '74.
Oh, that's awesome. That was about the year before I was born.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was born in '75.
How about that?
Yep. And then Miss Frida, didn't you tell me she was a teacher?
Yeah, she was a teacher at Milton High School. She did a nursing class.
Oh, okay.
She's an RN.
Yep.
And she can talk about that.
At first, I had a program at Milton High and taught a program that wasn't strictly nursing aid. It was all different types of help, occupation, the field of help. And then one day they came and said, you go out to Laughlin. So I went to, that time it was called Laughlin Botech, and taught nurses aid, a nursing assistant program.
I think I do remember that program being there. Yeah.
They had the
You may have taught a couple of my friends.
right. The rest homes had to have assistants that were certified, so they had to have a program that had all the things, all the procedures that they would need to take care of patients at the convalescent homes.
Wow.
And we would be in the classroom the first 3 months, and then I would start taking them to the different nursing homes around, and they would work 2 days there, and they would be in the classroom 3 days.
Oh, wow. Well, let me ask y'all this. Do you remember a lot about the aftermath, how the town reacted with the, after the storm hit and all that?
Well, the next day I had a C-section, and
Yeah.
middle son Stan was born, and that whole area over from us was flattened, and because we didn't have a car, we really didn't get out that much. I'm not sure what you did about transportation, Coley.
I know some of the things that I read, like did the National Guard, they were all here, or something, it was just a really big deal.
Yes, I think the National Guard did.
Yeah.
I mean, after a storm, a lot of times people descend on an area and they start pilfering. They start looting, because the homes were left wide open that were damaged. And so
that even happened back then. Yeah.
People stealing things that have some value. The damage to the trees persisted for a long time.
Yeah.
But that ultimately was back to normal. But yeah, these things, when they damage the trees, sometimes it takes a long time for that to recover.
Yes, yes.
Well, as we lay there, and it sounded like a freight train going over, we really didn't know to what extent the damage was going to be, but we were in a hallway, and like I say, the ceiling overhead was still intact. Gradually, I was facing the bedrooms. Slowly, I opened the bedroom door, and I could see the sky.
Wow.
I closed that door, and I opened another bedroom door, and I could see the sky. And then I looked down the other end, and I could see the sky. So at that point, I said, uh-oh, the roof is completely gone. But we are lying here. We're not injured. We're safe. And then a next door neighbor, whose name was Ray Brinson, came over and yelled to us, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Yes, we are not injured, but we have to get out of here." And so he helped us emerge from the house.
For several years, Rod would run if a cloud came over and it got darker.
Oh.
He would run from the yard where it was playing into
See,
the
that's
house.
me.
And he'd say, "Baby mama, baby mama." He wanted me to go pick up Stan, and we would sit on a big oversized chair.
It traumatized him.
I'd hold Stan, and Rod would sit on the chair, but he wanted us all to be together. He didn't know why.
Yeah.
He was too young.
Yeah, but something in him was, that day was with him.
I sang to him. I wouldn't let him be afraid.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
I wanted him to, to be over it. And
Yeah.
not
Because we have to be used to storms in Florida. I mean, no matter what, you never know. Even though, did they have a warning system back then, or they didn't?
warning system at all.
So,
They didn't even know when one was coming.
yeah,
But with a tornado, you don't, not like with a hurricane.
yeah, exactly, yeah. We now can plan for a hurricane. We have been for years, but still,
We got
we
one
still
coming
can't
up.
really plan for a tornado. While we're doing this,
Right.
you go ahead and tell your story about the, you weren't living in Milton yet, but I'll let you tell that.
All right, I was living in Panama City, and we were going to East Bruton to see my mom and daddy. We got to Milton. We turned off of Highway 90 on Stewart Street. It was blocked. We couldn't get through. We didn't know what the problem was. So we had to go all the way to Pace, turn and go to Shamucklet. And I don't know how we found it. We didn't have GPS. We didn't have a phone with us. From Shamucklet, we went to J.
Well, can you describe what the scene was like? instead of just, I mean, you got rerouted, but
Yeah, it was.
what was it like? I
It
mean,
was just dark.
were there people standing everywhere? Were there police
I didn't
cars,
see any people. I didn't
ambulances?
see any people. And when we got to J, we come on that J road, and before we could get to come out of the highway to turn and go into East Bruton, a little bridge was washed out.
Did you even know a tornado had hit when you came
No,
through?
we didn't know what it was.
Okay. So you didn't even know while you were being rerouted.
And then we found out later it was a tornado. And we had to turn around and go back, and it was probably about where you lived when you up there.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little trail through the woods. We've managed to find our way through the woods and come out on the highway and then go on in. And later we found out it had been a tornado. We got back.
Did you find out that same day?
Yeah.
Was it on the news
I don't remember.
or in a newspaper next day?
Then we got back home. It had hit some in Panama City because we had, back then you had antennas for TV. It had taken the antenna off.
Well, thank you very much, Mama. And thank y'all again, too.